Have you been wanting to know how to get more out of LinkedIn, but were too afraid to ask? Well, you've come to the right place because we're going to talk about all things LinkedIn, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to another FUTRtech video podcast. When John McGrath moved back to Dublin, Ireland in the middle of a recession, it was difficult to find a job, and he leaned heavily on LinkedIn to make it all happen. From then on, he was hooked. And for years, he worked with LinkedIn as a customer of LinkedIn, but eventually he got the chance to work for them as a global customer success manager. So he is here to tell us about the many things that LinkedIn offers, and he's going to tell us how to get the most out of this expansive platform. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much, Chris. Great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Well, thanks for being on. I'm really excited for this because we used LinkedIn an absolute ton, and it's sort of the main promotional vehicle for this podcast. But I don't feel like I utilize it to its fullest extent. So I'm really excited to hear about that. But before we get to that, I would love to just get a little bit of backstory on you. Where do you come from, and how did you get to LinkedIn?
So I'm from Dublin in Ireland, and really, I suppose, like you mentioned, my journey to LinkedIn started with a need for a job when I returned from traveling. So I'd been in Australia, Southeast Asia, traveling around, and I returned in 2009. And at that time, it was the global recession. Ireland was having a tough time. And to be honest, it took me about 9 months to get a role. And that was a very difficult period in my life. Anybody who's been out of a job for a significant period of time, I think, will go through a number of emotions. At the start, I was really excited. I was like, okay, I'm going to treat this like a job. I'm going to get up. I'm going to apply for jobs. I'm going to be really motivated. I'm going to have lunch. I'm going to finish at 5:30. So I had it all structured. But after about 2 months, with very little response, and I think that's the real kicker, is where you spend so much time applying to roles, putting time and effort into your CV to tailor it to the particular roles that you're applying for. You add a cover letter where you think it's going to really make an impact, and every time you're making a different one to make sure that the company knows that you've really put a lot of effort and time in, and then you don't hear anything. You hear nothing, not a thing back. And that was happening to me time and time and time again. And honestly, I was losing faith in humanity. I really was. I was losing faith because I just was like, what am I doing wrong here? Why aren't people responding to me? Why aren't people even just saying you're not relevant or it's not right for you? Just something. Zero. And so at that time, I just realized I needed something else, and I needed to be proactive, because I think in the job search, most of the time you're reacting to the market. You're saying, okay, I'm going to look for jobs, and then I'm going to apply to jobs, and then I'm going to hopefully hear something back. And that sort of just repeats itself day in, day out, So what I wanted to start to do was be proactive and actually sort of move away from the actual job itself and the application process to just start to speak to people in companies that I was interested in, just learn about their journey, understand how they got in, understand if there was anything that I needed to add, get some feedback, just people to help me. That's really what I wanted. And so what I started to do was use LinkedIn. I just started to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm in a pretty bad spot. I've been unemployed for 5 months. I'm finding it very, very difficult. I'm not getting anywhere. And what I'd love to do is just learn a little bit about your story, your journey. I really like your profile. I really think the company you work for is interesting. I think your role is one that I could really do well. And suddenly people started to come back to me. Suddenly people started to come back and say, I'd be happy to help. Let's get a coffee. I'll be happy to help and give you my time, give you my advice. And then suddenly I just felt energized again, because I just started to have human connection. I started to have people just be there for somebody else, and through that experience, I ended up in a job interview. I won't go into the details, but in the interview, it wasn't the right fit, to be honest, but I was so happy to have an interview, being like 7 or 8 months at this stage. But the guy, Tom, he was a lovely guy. He said, listen, I don't think this role is right for you, but what the conversation we're having, I think there's somebody I know. Her name is Fiona. She's in a company called Right Management. And I think you'd be really perfect for that organization. I'd love to make the introduction. So he introduced me over LinkedIn. Fiona said, we're not hiring anyone full time at the minute, but we actually have a need for somebody to come in on a temporary basis, because they were an organization, part of the Manpower group, And it was very much around outplacement support. Unfortunately, the recession had meant they were quite busy. A lot of companies restructuring, a lot of companies need an outplacement providers to be able to support employees who are being displaced.
Yeah.
And she said, hey, I need somebody to come in and pack books into bags, because we're running these 2-day courses and everybody gets these books and they're all in bags with pens and notepads. And she said, would you be interested? I was like, yeah, listen, I'd be super interested. I haven't had a job in like 8.5 months. And I went in there, and I tell you, nobody's ever packed bags quicker or better in the world. And I did that for a few months. And then like that my energy was there. They seen that I was like dedicated and interested, and, you know, they kept me on. And then I ended up, you know, becoming a project coordinator, and then project manager, then lead project manager. And then I transitioned into Manpower Group, where I was on site at Google for a number of years, running a big complex staffing project with them. And then I ran the strategic client division within Manpower Group. So I stayed with Manpower Group all in all for about 11 years. And then from there, I moved straight into LinkedIn. So actually, without LinkedIn, I probably wouldn't work for LinkedIn. So I sort of come full circle, to be honest.
I think that is such a great story, because it, you know, for all the people who are out there kind of struggling and trying to find something, you know, like changing the game, you know, just sending out resumes is not getting you anywhere. Then, you know, like making those personal connections is a really interesting approach to doing it. And I can see how LinkedIn would be central to that.
Yeah. And again, it's about, you know, what sits behind LinkedIn is people, members, you know, millions and millions of members, but they are human beings, you know. And honestly, I feel that if somebody authentically reaches out, and you don't know them, but you can feel their authenticity, you can feel, you know, their need for help. I think people want to help where they feel they can. And I think more often than not, you will get people coming back to you to give you advice or to give you their time. And what you'll find, honestly, is that you'll find, you know, a real level of humanity through the platform that potentially is out of your reach with your network that you have at home, you know, or the network that they have. Because suddenly you're connected to not just people that are around you or friends and family, but you're connected to people, you know, in companies that you're interested in. You're connected to people, you know, who are doing a job that you really want to do. And all of this advice is really, really beneficial, because it's really focused and really, really targeted on what it is you're trying to achieve. The one thing that we have to always remember is that if we look at the job market globally, probably one of the key sources of actual hires will be referrals. Like, it'll be referrals from the staff that work there. And so a lot of the times, the ability to be able to proactively reach out, have conversations, make a good impression. They may not be hiring managers. They may not be in the recruitment function, but they will be able to refer you, because all companies have referral programs. And usually there's sort of a financial reward for people to refer good talent into the organization. So actually, if you can be somebody that's seen in a really positive light to groups of people and companies you're interested in, then it's a no-brainer that they're going to be happy to refer you through the referral scheme within the organization, because not only is it helping you, but potentially it's financially helping them as well.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because, you know, you talk about sort of the jobs seeking part of it, you know, and obviously for Sandesh and I, you know, like just promoting this podcast is a big piece of it, and, you know, making connections. It's my sort of default contact list, quite honestly, because it's got the most current information for everybody. My contacts in my phone are, you know, outdated, but LinkedIn's, you know, right on top of it. But, you know, there's so much for so many people at LinkedIn. And I think, you know, we were talking the other day, and you were talking about products and services that LinkedIn offers that I had absolutely no idea even existed. Can you speak to some of the great features and functionality that the LinkedIn platform has?
Yeah, of course. So I think if we think traditionally about LinkedIn, it will be that sort of job space. I think that's what everyone will realize back in sort of like 2000s, and as we moved through that period, it was very much around jobs and about people looking for jobs. But now it's way beyond that. So first of all, it's about the member experience, because everything is about the member, because ultimately without the members, there's no LinkedIn. So, you know, 750 million people plus, you know, never been more sort of higher in growth in membership than currently, and really ensuring that the member has a very, very positive experience on the platform is fundamental. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but what that then means is if you have an engaged membership globally, it means then that you can create products around it that give access to organizations. So we think about what people want access to. So primarily, back in the day, it was talent, but now it's beyond that. So LinkedIn has a number of different business units, and they all sort of have a different focus. So talent solutions will be one, and talent solutions will be all encompassing. So it will be how you look at data to plan your strategy. So where is the talent? How can I find where there's hidden gem areas? How can I actually really, really understand where I can find the talent I'm very interested in? And very specifically as well, like really AI driven. So you're looking at, very, very, very broad filters and how you actually sort of like look through the data to really find what it is that you need. So I need 5 years experience. I need them to have lived somewhere. I need them to, have multiple languages. I need them to maybe have worked for a number of organizations. All of these things can be programmed in to find you that group of people. But then as we walk through, then it's about how do you engage that group then on the platform? So how do you actually reach out? What brand do you have on the platform? So your company page, your sort of, your shop front, and what does your culture say about you on LinkedIn? Or sorry, what does your company page say about your culture on LinkedIn? And then it's about how you get them into then your ecosystem, so how do you actually hire them through? So, do you use the LinkedIn product from an ATS perspective? So the integrations to ATSs that are out there, applicant tracking systems that are as well. So like literally from planning right through to finding. And then it's about sort of engaging as well. It's about developing because LinkedIn acquired lynda.com, so LinkedIn Learning. So now it's not just about hiring great talent, but it's about developing great talent. So it's about making sure that they're getting access to, the right level of learning, very engaging, very AI driven, recommending specific matches. And also then LinkedIn acquired Glint as well. And Glint is an employee engagement platform. Glint basically is like around surveys. So it's surveying your workforce and again, understanding the pulse of the organization so you can really understand what's going right, what's not, what is it we need to adjust, how do we really listen, and how do we then, build that back into our processes to make sure that our workforce is very happy. So that's like that talent solution space. But then if we think about the member base, we think about then, there's a lot of people on there who are the decision makers when it comes to purchasing. There's a lot of people who are part of the buying circle that would be on LinkedIn. So then you're thinking about these like sales solutions. So for salespeople, there's a product called Sales Navigator. And Sales Navigator really is a tool to be able to really take social selling to the next level. So, I think if we think about the past when it comes to selling, there was like the cold calls and there was the Rolodexes and there was, there was a lot of like mass mail marriages, like, all of this way to go about how you would actually get in front of the right people. But a lot of the times you'd miss the boat, you're already, you're coming in when the decision's being made, when actually, you need to be in way before that. So like the fundamentals of social selling is like, how do you identify the right people? And then how do you start to use social media, especially LinkedIn as a professional platform, to start to engage that audience? So if I can identify the right people in an organization that I'm really interested in speaking at, that I know are a part of that decision, that it really will affect my organization when it comes to like the products and services that we offer, how do I start to become a thought leader in their minds way before they start making decisions? How am I in that room before I'm in the room? And LinkedIn can be fundamental for that because you've got the ability to connect. You've got the ability to join groups that they're in and be a vocal member of groups and show that you've got so much knowledge and insight and you're willing to help. And the type of individual that you are and the brand that you have on the platform, you're already starting to make an impression. Also through Navigator, what you can do, which is really cool, is, you can see what they are commented on, liking on, sharing, what content that they're producing. Not only does that give you insight into them as an individual, what they care about from a professional point of view, maybe even from a personal point of view, but also it gives you the ability to actually comment and to be starting. You don't have to be connected to comment. So, you can start to just have insightful commentary with somebody that you don't know, but that's super, super important, when it comes to like who we want to engage in our organization. And before you know it, they're like, because you see who likes, and everybody looks at who's liking and who's interacting with my stuff on LinkedIn. So everybody's looking at that. So you can then start to influence. And also then there's ways and mechanisms to be able to reach out and to be able to share information. So it's a great product for sales professionals because, again, to your point, Chris, it's an up-to-date list. People keep their profiles up to date. It's not what you have static, CRMs or static information. It's really up-to-date information. And what's great as well about LinkedIn, and we think about Sales Navigator as a product, it's where do people go when they leave organizations? Because imagine you've got great relationships with people and then they leave suddenly, and you're like, that's really difficult for me because we had a great relationship, we worked well together, and actually they're a huge advocate for our organization. But they go somewhere, you know, and it's a huge opportunity to take that relationship where they go. And a lot of times we lose that because we just don't have that connection. And through LinkedIn and through products like Navigator, you can actually see where these people go, and you can actually start to then just engage in their new organization. Hey, I can see you've worked in X now. It'd be great if we could have a conversation about how we can continue the relationship that we started like years ago.
Yeah, that is a huge piece for Sandesh and I, because when we see somebody move, the number one place we see anything happening is LinkedIn, right? And we see, oh, this person that, we had a great relationship over here is now over here. Let's go talk to them. I mean, it's an enormously valuable tool.
And also what's really important is this idea of connection, because, we might have, for example, 500 connections each, but if we're connected, then there's a potential opportunity for me to be referred by you or recommended by you to somebody that's not inside my network, but inside your network. So for me there, because it's all about that first connection. So imagine I've identified the right people, I'm engaging with them in groups, and I'm producing great content that's really insightful for my industry and showing me as the thought leader that I want to be. I'm commenting, I'm liking, I'm adding value to their content. And then, Sandesh actually knows this person well, and myself, I know Sandesh well, and we've actually worked together, on a different project. And then for me then to use the connection I have to introduce me to the connection he has is, again, so powerful. And it's a really great way to actually make a really meaningful, first impression with somebody.
Yeah, so you've got, I didn't realize you guys had purchased lynda.com. That was interesting. I'm learning new things all the time, every time I talk to you. So what else do you guys have? I mean, you've got the applicant tracking systems, you've got, all these tools for social sales, which by the way, Sandesh and I are really of the mind that is sort of the future of sales, is being more of the influencer part of it than the guy processing the orders so much. So I think that's going to have a lot of traction in the future. But what else is there?
Well, so we have sort of the sales solutions division, then we have the talent solutions division, and then we have the marketing solutions as well. So the ability to be able to create great content on the platform and to get it in front of the right audience. Super targeted, super focused, and really being able to again get your message to the right audience. And again, I think what I love about LinkedIn is, if we think about that members first, that's really the fundamental, the golden rule when it comes to LinkedIn. So what you'll find when you as a member are on the platform, it's not a bombardment of information around like companies or products. It's really, it's a very, very tailored experience to what it is that you need and want. And you've got full control over it as well. So you can actually change the settings, and you can add additional content. You can remove certain content. So you create your own experience on LinkedIn. And I think the marketing solutions business, I think what they've done very well is that they've been able to weave into that, very personal and very, very targeted sort of narrative for each individual, and add certain values to certain things that products want to get out there as well. So I think we've got our marketing solutions, sales solutions, and talent solutions, and that's really the company, the client products that you can use to access the member base and add value through LinkedIn to your organization. But I think if we think about the member, we think about what the member can actually do on the platform. I think the work that's being done is phenomenal, because it's not just about being on the platform, but it's about being engaged on the platform. And how do you keep people engaged? You keep people engaged by giving them an ability to be able to add value to themselves, economic opportunity, whatever they're sort of focused on at that moment in time. So, for example, members now can add video intros. So there's a video intro functionality. So it means then that you can create a great way to introduce yourself without having to meet people. It's on your profile. As soon as somebody clicks on your profile, they'll see this little video that you can create. It's not a static picture anymore. We talked a little bit about the fact that there's name pronunciation now, so you can actually record how your name is pronounced, and people can then, they can play it and they can understand, okay, this is the way this person's name is supposed to be pronounced, meaning that it breaks down that barrier of like, I don't really want to offend anybody by getting the name wrong.
That is so huge. I got to tell you, I didn't know that was a feature, and I want to highlight this because I want everybody to go and pronounce their name on LinkedIn so that I can listen to those. Because, honestly, we do these podcasts, and, we have a lot of people, from all over the world with names that are, the pronunciation is not necessarily obvious, right? And so, it's hard. I struggle, and I feel horrible when I mispronounce somebody's name because I just think it's just terrible thing to do, to mispronounce somebody's name. I think if you can talk to somebody, you should make the effort to try to get their name right. And so that, to me, I just want to make sure everybody goes and records their name for me. It'd be really helpful. Sandesh knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. And I didn't even know that existed until just now, and I'm gonna do that too for myself. I mean,
yeah, you should, because your name is a little counterintuitive. When you look at how it's spelled to how it's pronounced, it's spelled Sandesh, but you pronounce it Sundish. So it should be Sundish for all those.
Oh no, this is my name has been a traumatic experience for me in my entire life. I was so confused growing up. I just called myself Sandesh because everyone would just say Sandesh, and I'm like, okay, well, seems like, the Americans can say that, so we'll just go with Sandesh. Then I got older, and I'm like, I'm kind of selling myself out, like, why am I not pronouncing my own name correctly? And then I felt like, okay, you got to, so like after college and everything, I'm like, you know what, I'll try Sundish, which now it's got, people used to call me Dish, now people call me Desh, some people call me Sandy, Sundish, Sandesh, Sandeep. I was on an internal call with an executive, and he mispronounced my name like 5 times. He kept saying Sandeep, and I'm like, oh my God. And I corrected him, and he goes right back to Sandeep. So I don't know if LinkedIn's going to be able to fix that, but, there's just
there's only so much
out
you
there.
can do to fix people.
There's a lot of stupidity out there for sure. But yeah, I think that's a great feature. It's awesome.
No, and again, I just think it's what I love about LinkedIn is really, everybody that works at LinkedIn really believes in what it is we're trying to achieve, and the mission is about creating economic opportunity for the global workforce, and it's very aspirational, but it's something that's like widely believed, and it's something that we really, really cherish in the sense that we are doing something good for the world. Like, we talk openly about how many people get jobs through LinkedIn, how many people connect to opportunity through LinkedIn, whether that's through increasing sales by using products like Navigator, or whether it's just doing what I did and reaching out to people and asking for help and getting the help that they need. And really, I think that's what, like, I love this organization and I love the platform, and I really believe in it. I believe in it 100%. And it's so refreshing, and we talk a lot about it. It's about, doing well by doing good. And I think it's a beautiful expression, because the better we do to really create that economic opportunity for everybody around the world, then the more successful LinkedIn will be, because we'll have a more engaged, wider, bigger member base.
I think that is something that I don't think people really know about LinkedIn. I don't think, Facebook has a personality, Snapchat, whatever, LinkedIn has been so much of a professional network that I think people, I'll be honest, I was very timid about LinkedIn. I didn't want to put very much on there. There's people in our organization, there's people in our industry, sales folks, that don't have a picture up. They barely have any information at all, right? And so that's more on the radical side. But I was a little bit more like poo-pooing LinkedIn, like, oh, I'm not going to go out there and try to, pump my chest and, put myself out there. I'm too humble for that. I'm too cool for that, whatever, right? Now it's like, wow, man, it's so powerful. And I like the fact that LinkedIn has this culture of doing well, doing good. That's refreshing to hear, but I don't think a lot of LinkedIn users know that about LinkedIn. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's really about the experiences you've had on the platform. I think people that have got those connections that have led to economic opportunity, or people who have had people reach out to them on LinkedIn. I think it's where they've been touched by LinkedIn, or they've had that experience with LinkedIn. I think that's the people that realize, okay, this is what this is all about. This is fundamentally what it's about. And again, I think like what I love is these additional features because they come along. There's no cost associated with it, but they come along and they make a profound impact. Like Chris, you were pretty blown away by that sort of name pronunciation piece.
Yeah.
But again, that's purely for the members. You know, that there's nothing in there for anything else. It's just to help people. And again, if we think about if you have if it's going to stop or maybe make it apprehensive to connect, then we're trying to remove those barriers so people feel like they can be themselves. And like that authenticity is really a fundamental part of success on LinkedIn. I think the people that are authentic and that actually bring themselves to the platform and can be open and honest about who they are, where they seen success, but also where they've seen failure, where they've seen, real humanity, but also where they've seen, the opposite of that as well. But I think that's the stuff that really goes well on LinkedIn because, again, like to my point earlier, behind every profile is a human being. And I think, we talked a little bit about this the last time we spoke, but, we can't deny that LinkedIn is the most trusted platform out there. Business Insider, last 4 years in a row, it's won. And I think what's very interesting about the list you see 4 years ago versus the list you see today is that the companies that were at the top of that list have really gone down and down and down every year. That they haven't gone up, down, up, down, up, down. It's been like this gradual descent for other social platforms. And I think people crave a place where they can feel safe, where they feel that there's a level of trust. And I think LinkedIn is that place. And the reasons behind that, I think there are quite a few, but I think fundamentally it's self-policing. I think it's really, really amazing that people will not accept rudeness or people will not accept vulgarity. Like people will openly say, hey, this is not the place for that. You go off somewhere else to do stuff like that. And I think that's really cool because it shows that people care about their experience on LinkedIn. They care about the relationships that they create and they care about the time they spend on the platform. And I think it's a refreshing space to be because they don't have to worry about fake news. They don't have to worry about all this hate and all this negativity because it's like I can come in here and I know what I get. And I know if I reach out to somebody, I'm going to get a professional response from that person. And it's not going to be something that could lead to something that I'm not really interested in or could be negative or could be something really, I'm very disinterested in.
Well, that you bring up a really excellent point. And because we are living in the age of social media, and I think for the most part, most people haven't been prepared for that age. And, so many social media platforms are extremely toxic. And LinkedIn is one of the places that you've largely avoided all of that. And we talked about this before. One of the things that I know the rules, and I've never been told the rules of LinkedIn. It's kind of obvious. How do you build a platform where that kind of understanding and that level of discourse, remains high? What goes in? What's the secret sauce there?
I think if we think about the audience that everybody has, I think if we think about the connections we all have, we have connections to people that we work with. We have connections to our managers, potentially connections to senior leadership within our organization, potentially connections to people that we would like to work for in the future. It's not just your family and friends where you can sort of turn off that sort of professional lens and, joke or all this sort of stuff that you can do elsewhere. So I think people are very, very, they're very aware of the potential for what they say and what they interact with and engage with, to have a direct impact on how people perceive them, who are very important from a professional standpoint. So I think that in itself means that people are a little bit more cautious about what they say, what they engage with. But I think that's where the opportunity is. And I think that's where people really need to realize, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we move on to some of the points later. But I feel so I think that's number one. I think secondly, it's the focus that LinkedIn has. And I'm not a part of, the engineering organization or, the leadership team, per se at that senior level, but the focus on security, the focus on members first, the focus on trust, and trust really is fundamental. Like it's a core principle, core strategy, core focus. And it's really at the center of everything. Because if we think about members first, we have to think about those members and their safety and their trust. And if we don't think about that, we don't nurture that, we don't really, really respect that, then what it will mean is there'll be no LinkedIn, So fundamental to members first is actually trust, safety, security. And so the focus from every single division, every single team, every single leader on safety, trust, security, members first is phenomenal. And like in openly meetings in every team, they will talk about like, how would this affect members first, like that. But like we talk through it from a member's lens, because we really want to make sure that whatever we do on the platform is for them, and it's going to benefit them and really lead to that, economic opportunity as they sort of like navigate their careers and their lives.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because LinkedIn's one of those platforms where the consequences for bad behavior are kind of obvious, right? And I think other platforms, maybe that just doesn't exist, so people have a tendency to police themselves a little bit more, more diligently.
But to be honest, like that's not to say that every single day we're fighting a huge battle,
I'm sure.
which we are, so it's not to say that there's people that are trying to be negative, people that are trying to support hate, not to say that people are trying to leverage the platform for, nefarious deeds and like things that are against what we're trying to achieve. So there's huge amounts of resources that are, every single day on the front line when it comes to, shutting down profiles, dealing with, bad comments or like negative stuff that people are flagging. So it's an ongoing constant battle, unfortunately, that I think unfortunately is a part of everyday life and social at the moment.
Sounds like your kids agree.
Are they outside?
We all work from home these days. Kids are part of life. I mean, that's how it goes.
They're at the back there.
But I do want to get to, because I think a lot of the people who are watching this are like, I'm on LinkedIn. I post a platitude once a month, and that's all I do there. But clearly, there's a whole lot more people can get out of LinkedIn if they use it strategically. And I was wondering, if maybe you could give us some tips. I mean, because just for perspective, we promote this podcast on LinkedIn. That's our sort of primary vector for promoting it, and we do it at 9 a.m. on Mondays because we seem to get the best engagement at that time, and we find that on LinkedIn, early engagement and consistent engagement with whatever you're posting really drives up the viewership. I don't know if that's true, but that's just what I see and what I've heard. Tell me what are all the secrets to LinkedIn? I'm sure there are many.
If you think about content, it is about early engagement. That's fundamental. So the AI will recognize where it's getting a lot of traction and where it's happening fast, and then it will boost it. It will bump it up. So I think that's really, really important from a content perspective. Like obviously there's ways then that you can sponsor your content. So if you have a specific audience in mind and you think, what, I want to sponsor this and I want to get it out in front of a specific type of individual in a specific country or a specific location, then that's what I'm going to do. From an organic perspective, it's about if we take away the algorithm and about when you post content and all that good stuff, if we just think about an individual and their personal profile and then what they're trying to achieve, I think first of all, that's really at the core of it, is like, what's your overall objective? I think people don't really have an objective on LinkedIn. They join LinkedIn because they think they should, and they don't really understand why. And also then they don't really have a brand that they're sort of like building either. So they don't have a brand or an idea of what their brand should be, and they don't really have a purpose, an overall objective or a goal that they're trying to get to. Because I think you have to understand that your profile is your brand. It's your brand, like, Nike has a brand or Reebok has a brand. It's your brand that basically says, this is who I am and this is what I want to be on this platform. This is what I want to be seen as. So I think if you are trying to be a thought leader in front of a specific audience, or if you're trying to, like you guys, like, connect tech professionals around like really important topics, create great conversations. Like, so I think it's about like fundamentally, defining what it is you're trying to achieve. And then from there, it's about then creating the right profile that sort of like speaks to that. Because I think what a lot of people do is they replicate sort of a resume, a CV, whereas ultimately it's not that sort of place. You don't need to speak, in third person. You don't have to be super professional. Authenticity and the real humanity that you are, the real human being you are, is much more about what LinkedIn is. So I think it's about really defining about what is it I'm trying to achieve, and then aligning your profile to that overall objective. Because guess what? Like, the number one activity on LinkedIn is looking at profiles. You meet people at a networking event, they look at your profile. You have a conversation with somebody, look at your profile. Like, everything you do will mean that somebody's going to come and look at your profile. And so if somebody looks at your profile and it sort of is a bit maybe disjointed from the person that they met or from like the experience they had, then it just becomes something that's not relevant, because they'd be like, you know what, it's not that good, so I'm just going to move on away from it. So I mean, I think it's almost like people know immediately if you don't really care about your profile, or if you don't really have invested time in LinkedIn. I think that's very, very obvious. So I think that alignment is really, really important. But then it's really about your voice. You know, it's about what you, because you then you've got a great profile, you have an overall strategy of what you're trying to achieve. And then it's about, okay, two specific things. One is amplification. You know, you want to amplify your brand. How do I do that? How do I amplify my brand? And two is then, how do I get in the minds of the people that I'm interested in? How do I really, really start to create the right level of content that will actually speak to this overall objective that I'm trying to achieve? So this idea of amplification and then like content, I think those two things go hand in hand. And also then with amplification, there's sort of like multiple threads with that. So proactive network growth. I think people, they're not proactive when they think about growing their network. Your first connections will see your content. So they will immediately in their feed see what it is that you're producing. So it's organic, it's free. And a lot of people, they're just connected to their friends, their family, people they work with. Whereas actually, if you have an objective to sort of like speak to a certain organization or an industry, then what you need to do is think about, well, who on the platform do I want to connect to? Who on the platform do I want in my connection? So that when I actually produce content, they see it. And I think that that's really, really important, is like that idea of being very, very selective and very, very strategic and proactive in how you actually grow your network. And I think, again, people are sort of a little bit maybe apprehensive when it comes to connection.
Yeah.
And I get that. I do get that. But I think when it comes to connection, it's not about the end goal. It's not about what's in it for you. It's about what's in it for them, you know? And I think that's really what people need to be aware of, is that when you've got a profile on LinkedIn and you're thinking about content, it's not about thinking about what you like or about what you want. It's about understanding what your network really is going to engage with and respond to. Like, what's topical, what's the most important things in the industries of the people you're connected to, what are people talking about? And I think if you can understand your network and you can create content that aligns to what it is that they're interested in, that's a really like fundamental in order to really start to have a brand and be amplified in the right way. The other thing as well is to understand the tools you have access to. So a lot of people, and I think it's fundamental. It happens everywhere, but people like, and they don't do anything else. So they just like.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you have an opportunity when somebody produces a piece of content and they are influential, maybe for a reason, whatever it might be, whether it's a company you want to work for or a company you want to engage with because you want to sell a product to them. But ultimately, when content is produced, if you like it, it doesn't really, you've got an opportunity at that moment to really add value to that comment. You know, you can add value through commentary, and you can add to the conversation that they've started. You can add something insightful, something that really speaks to your expertise, something that is going to help them and something that's going to add value to their network. So just liking is really, if you're missing an opportunity. So for anybody that's looking to like create a great brand, have a great focus on what they're trying to achieve, grow their network base in the right way, but then you need to go beyond liking. You really, really need to go beyond liking, because that then really gives you're in the minds of the people that are producing this content and the people that you really want to engage with.
That's all really great advice. I mean, I think, you know, like Sandesh says, I think a lot of people are, you know, maybe a little introverted when they come on the platform, and they're, you know, because, you know, we spend so much time worried about, you know, somebody stealing our information. You know, there's endless horror stories. So like sharing is scary for a lot of people. And you know, the concept of having a personal brand, I think freaks some people out, because they're like, oh, why should I have a brand? I'm not, you know, deserving a brand or whatever. So it is interesting to, you know, like have that ability to do that. But I mean, for people who are kind of reluctant like that, I mean, I know you guys do some training and things like that. I mean, how do you help people get over some of those hurdles?
Yeah. So again, if we think about the member experience, there's a huge amount of amazing content that's available to help people on their journey. So whether it's setting up your profile for the first time, whether it's like understanding like fundamentals of networking on the platform, whether it's like great ways to sort of like have that first reach out to sort of like make the right impression. So there's lots of great content that you can engage with, and that will really help you along your way. And again, that, you know, and that's down, and that is across all of the products, whether it's just you as a member and trying to use the tool for your own objectives, or whether it's you're using Sales Navigator, or whether you're using the recruiter products, or whether you're using like job slots, or so whatever product you're using, there's like phenomenal resources available to really help you along the way. But it's an interesting point. Like it's an important point, is that it's scary, and sometimes, you know, people are reluctant to put themselves out there. I think that there has to be a compelling reason for you to want to do it, you know, and I think that's sort of at the crux of this as well, is that, you know, if you see the need and see the value in this, I think, and you're willing to invest the time, I think that's really where you're going to really make the right inroads. I think you need to go all in. And I'm not saying that you need to spend lots and lots of time on this, but, you know, if you are willing to go the extra mile to create yourself a good brand, like think deeply about what you want to achieve, if then, you know, you're willing to sort of grow your network in the right way, join groups, engage in groups, help others, like all of this stuff, then I think from a content perspective, you need to be really diligent on like your frequency, on you know, your schedule, because you have to stay on top of it. So, you know, if you are going to be somebody that's going to start to produce content, then it's not about producing content every day, you know, but it's about saying, I'm going to try and do something once a month, and I'm going to stick to it, or I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to maybe try and move it up to once every 2 weeks. So I think it's about understanding that you commit to create content, to produce. And again, it's not about producing huge articles, but it's like maybe sharing an article that you've seen, or it's sharing a white paper that's been very interested in the industry that you're in. And I think what will happen then is you will start to see traction. And if you don't, then maybe the content isn't right. You're not going to get it always right first time. I think it's about really understanding what has had comments, engagement, what's been shared, what is it that I've done, what's the sweet spot in the content that I've actually started to create, because then I can start to focus. Then I can start to understand, okay, this isn't really getting any traction, whereas this is getting really, really good stuff. A lot of people, they don't really monitor the engagement that they get of the content that they produce, and that can be difficult then, because you don't really know what's gone well and what's not gone well. So I think fundamentally understanding where you've gone right, and then being able to double down on that, or being able to think, okay, why, and then be able to sort of like work, because then you're learning, you're changing, you're actually getting better as you move forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, you keep talking about the members, and I think, you know, we just did a podcast not too long ago about, we were talking about the concept of don't hire assholes, right? Because they can drag the whole company down, right? And I think the thing that's cool about what you're talking about, and when you build your personal brand, is you're showing the human side of you. Because, you know, so much in hiring is like, here's a resume, come in with this formal interview, and it's hard to really understand what a person's about or what their personality's like. But if you see their profile on LinkedIn, and they're sharing certain types of articles, you can kind of get a sense of what they are as a person and what they would be like to work with. You know, and I think that's a really cool part about it. And I think it's a really important part that people don't always understand, is like putting yourself out there a little bit, sharing a little bit of who you are, and, you know, sharing who you are professionally as well is going to be such an important part of that skilled labor force going forward. That, you know, I think it's a really critical item for people to focus on. Yeah,
no, I agree 100%. And again, you know, there's so much value being on the platform that you can get access to. So one of the things that was released a few years ago was assessments, LinkedIn assessments. So, you know, they're all free of charge. So you can take this assessment and you get this badge in your profile to say this person's certified in X skill. And that can be found by recruiters. So if recruiters are looking for a certain type of skill, they can search for people who are certified, which means then that they know they've already sort of been pre-vetted for this particular skill. What I really love about this product is, first of all, it's free. But if you do not pass an assessment, automatically LinkedIn learning courses are opened up for free that will help you to then come back and pass that course. So, you know, not only then are you somebody that's on the platform and you're like creating a brand, but you've got opportunities to like assess yourself, develop new skills, you know, get access to learning for free. So I think, you know, the opportunities there, I think, are really, really positive as well. And again, I don't know if you're aware of this, but one of the things through last year, through COVID, that, you know, when it all sort of really started to get really heavy and a lot of people are losing their jobs, Microsoft, GitHub, LinkedIn came together, and really with this overall goal to reskill 25 million people globally. And so what they did was like analyzed what are the 10 jobs that are quite accessible for the future. So they're good jobs, but you don't need an education for them. You can learn everything online. You know, they have good like salaries. They're sort of like good jobs you could get. So what are the 10 most ones based on the LinkedIn data that we see? What are the ones that are there? So then understood what these 10 roles were, and then created learning paths for each one. So open for free learning paths that will get you into that particular role. Also, Microsoft, anyone that needed Microsoft certification, there's huge discounts on the certification, and like phenomenal, like, you know, commitment to reskill, you know, displaced people into jobs of the future based on data, for you know, for nothing, and it's had a phenomenal uptake. It's I don't know the exact numbers, but 40 million plus people have engaged and have learned new skills because of this. But again, I think it shows the reason why it's great to be a member. It's great to be on LinkedIn is that there's always this constant focus on what do our members need? You know, what is it that the members really, really need at this moment in time? Like, and the other thing as well, a number of years ago that was recognized was this really interesting concept of how our networks can influence our success. Mm. So if we think about somebody that maybe didn't go to the right school, or not the right school, but maybe like did a school of, you know, what's seen as choice, yeah, or maybe they didn't live in the right place, you know, and maybe because of that, then their network isn't very strong. So they don't have the connections that other people would have naturally because they go to the right schools, or they live in the right places, or wherever it might be right is. Yeah. And the opportunities that open up. So it was really interesting, and it was all sort of coined this network gap. So it's very, very something that LinkedIn could see really, really clearly, that there was a fundamental gap between the success potential of people who didn't have those networks versus the people who did have those networks. And so a lot of the focus from LinkedIn's perspective at the minute is around like equity. It's about sort of trying to create this equitable way that we can create opportunity for the global workforce. So it's not just for certain individuals, but it's for everybody, and it's equal. It's equal for everybody. And one of the things that really was pushed internally was this idea of like a +1 pledge, and I loved it. And what we were saying was that everybody in LinkedIn just go out there and find people not in your network, people who need help, and help them. Go out there and like actively go outside your network, actively go out there beyond what you would normally traditionally see as your network, and find people to help that need help. And it was phenomenally successful. And I honestly, I enjoyed the process. All of the staff at LinkedIn got free LinkedIn premium licenses to give out to people. And then we were told, go out there and do good, find people that need help, give them access to premium, give them your time, tell them how to do a profile, tell them how to, you know, connect to opportunity and use their network. And again, I think that's a message for everybody. Like, that's a message for anybody on LinkedIn who's had any level of success, or even who hasn't. But like, if somebody comes and asks you for help, help them. And, you know, actively go to find opportunities to help others, because it's like fundamentally one of the most beautiful things that anybody can do.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, you don't hear a big company talking like that too often. I got to say, I like LinkedIn a lot more knowing that, because I think you are so right. And I think, you know, we've said this so many times that your network is so incredibly important. I think who you know is probably significantly more valuable than what you know, even, right? And, you know, like enabling people to have access to those kinds of networks, I think is a really, really important thing when, you know, we talk about, you know, employing the world and retraining the world into new jobs and getting people, you know, into opportunity. That is central to it. So that's good work there.
Yeah, and again, I think it's this idea of community. And I think people don't really. I think sometimes people don't see LinkedIn as a community, but it absolutely is. You know, it's a community. You know, first of all, the group of people you're connected to, so that's the community that you're a part of. But I think the group's experience is really, really underutilized. I think the ability to join groups and to add value, like there's thousands of groups that are out there, you know, focused on, you know, so many different areas. and the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to add value, to help, to increase your brand as well, like to understand that you can amplify via groups. They're not your first connections maybe, but you can have a very, very strong voice and you can show who you are in groups. And I think if people are maybe a little bit sort of more apprehensive to create content or to start as like one-to-one comment on people's content, I think groups are a great starting point, because you can join a group based on an interest that you have or something that's very important to you. And then you can sort of like maybe be an active listener at the start. So see what people are commenting, see what people are saying. And then like slowly you can maybe start to add value, and that can be a great way to sort of just get yourself used to and get yourself sort of, familiar with how to start to engage through social. John,
you brought so much information to this podcast, and I learned a ton actually, and I'm excited to get on LinkedIn and you really elevate my brand there a little bit better. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know you guys, it's like 1,000,000 degrees over there in Ireland right now. Hopefully you don't melt. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. It was really great.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And like I say, I think if anybody out there is a little bit apprehensive, I think just get on, give it a go. I think, really, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for everybody. And I think the more you get into it, I think the more you'll really see that it's not difficult. And actually it's something that can really, really add value to your journey.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks so much. Take care, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you liked what you saw, please click on that like button. Hit that subscribe button because that helps the channel a ton. And if you want notifications, click on that bell icon. And I will see you in the next video.